How are you?
Well, I feel kind of silly because I'm pretty sure I'm getting an ear infection.
Oh,
And I feel like that's something only little kids do.
no.
So, yeah, it's better. I was worse last night. It's better this morning. So we're doing okay. And it'll be okay. Like I smell intensely of basil essential oil right now. So, fun
Well,
times.
my ears were hurting. I'll discuss in a little bit that we all got sick at the same time.
Hmm.
I was the least sick among us, but my ears hurt so bad,
Hmm.
just constantly. And so I ordered ear pain relief drops.
Hmm.
The second they came into this house, my ears didn't hurt anymore.
You
I
didn't
don't
even
even
use them.
I don't even know where they are, honestly. Like
They're that
I
magical.
yeah, I had ordered a Walmart delivery order and it was in it. And Shane and E were asleep in the van. And I was like, hey, when they get here, wake me up
Uh-huh.
to let me use these. I'm miserable.
Uh-huh.
And Shane's like, okay. And then when I woke up, my ears didn't hurt anymore, and they never did again.
Awesome. That's
So
awesome.
it is what it
Yeah.
is.
Mine can't decide if it's like throat down here or ear, like they're both like going in between.
Yeah.
We'll see what it turns into. I had all of the honey and all of the tea last night, and I was like, I have to be able to talk in the morning. And here we are. I can still talk. We're good.
Yeah. Oh, and
Also, we are in the middle of like a once in a decade storm at my house, is what I've been told.
yep.
Um, we have like at least 10 inches of snow on the ground. And in the middle, so it snowed and then we got freezing rain and then it snowed some more. So in the middle of that 10 inches of snow somewhere is a layer of like a quarter of an inch to a little more of ice. So when you go to try to walk, you like sink into the snow and then you chunk through the ice and then you go through more snow. Um, our chickens are so mad. It's hilarious. They look out the door of their coop and they say, not happening, and they go back inside. None of them have been outside since it started. Um, Tonight, so the day that we're recording this, is supposed to be the coldest night out of the storm. And the predictions for tonight have ranged between 4 degrees, -3 degrees, -5 degrees, and the most current one is 0
No, thank you.
for our low tonight. So that's going to be interesting. And we may have more snow on Friday.
Oh, well, I've canceled that for us.
That's not fair. You're married to the weatherman. That's not cool.
We have tickets to see a show. We have
Hmm.
not told our kid about it, so like if it doesn't happen, it's not going to be as devastating.
Right, right.
Um, but we
That's
have
a great mom
tickets.
hack, by the way. Just don't tell your kids.
Yeah,
Like, just don't. Don't tell them until like the day of or the day before. They don't care. Please don't hype them up and then somebody gets sick. Like, it's just
yeah.
not worth it.
I'm just not even going to tell him until we're there. Like we have
Perfect.
tickets. We have tickets to see the Hot Wheels Monster Truck show.
Oh, he's gonna love that.
Oh yeah, and it's a lot show.
Oh, I might have a seizure.
So at some point they're supposed to cut the lights out in the arena and all of the monster trucks are gonna light up.
Oh, that's cool.
So I'm really excited about it, but I'm not telling him about it. But it's on Saturday night. So
Maybe they'll be clear by then. What I'm hearing is like Friday afternoon.
my weatherman's given me Friday afternoon and Saturday morning. And I reminded him that we had plans, and he made a face, and I said, no, sir. No, sir. That's not what we're doing. But
Fair. That's a
yeah, I've missed this so much.
Me too.
Like, Unvarnished Mamas and Diana are so important to me. But a lot of things have happened.
It's been a year.
It
It's
has.
I'm happy we're in 2025. We have we have some good things I think coming this year. Um, but 2024 was kind of a bear. I mean, like good things happened too. Like there were good things, but it was kind of a bear.
Yeah. It's hard to decide which was harder.
Mhm.
2023, where we had 14 funerals,
Mhm.
or 2024.
Yep.
Um, when we last got to record and upload, we were about to enter into the holiday season, and I remember that there was something at the time that made me feel like super overwhelmed.
Mhm.
And at the end of 20, like somewhere around the end of 2023, but like, boy, has my definition of overwhelmed changed.
Mhm.
Um,
And
so
praise God you have a therapist.
yeah, yes, she doesn't get paid enough. Although yesterday she was not nice,
You know
and
she can't always be nice.
well, she can be nicer. I told Shane that I did not pay her to tell me the truth. I paid her to tell me that I'm always right.
I don't think that's in your contract.
So, did not appreciate that when she's like, you are allowed to take time for yourself. You're allowed to be lazy. You're allowed to do nothing except exist on the couch. But you are not allowed to do that all of the time.
Mhm.
And I said, but you don't understand. It seems like the hardest thing in the world to stand up. And she was like, and that's when you need to just do it.
Mhm.
And I said, but Alex, how?
You just stand up.
And she says, well, normally you put your feet on the floor and you sit on the edge of the couch and you don't let your back touch the back of the couch, and then you put pressure down on your feet. Forward momentum. That's how you stand. And I was just like, "Mhm."
I love Alex. She's the best.
I do too on most days. Yesterday was not the day for her. We're finally getting to record again, and we decided to just do one episode of a catch up. I thought that might be the easiest way instead of doing a massive catch up where we're going back and forth about our year.
Mhm.
But
Yeah,
since
so
it,
Amanda's doing a catch up this time.
yeah, and then you're gonna do one next
Mhm.
week.
Yep.
So excited.
And then we're going to look forward into 2025 after that. I think is what we
Yeah,
said.
yeah. I think that's the plan. But I guess just to go ahead and dive right on into mine.
Yes.
So, in January of 2024, we got a text message that we had a court date for adoption.
Woohoo!
So I
The
immediately,
level of celebration that was happening in our house too, because Eli's
oh,
family to us. Like he has been from the beginning. My kids pray for him. Like he is absolutely he's ours.
yeah, we we got the message. I got the message, and I called Shane and was like, "Hey, I'm gonna need you to take off work on February 19th. If you could go ahead and put that in." And he's like, "Okay, well," I was like, "Well, we just have to go to court." And he's like, "What?" So then I had to call all of the grandparents, and I think I called you guys,
Mhm.
but that was fun. But I immediately went into full planning mode.
Mhm.
And I was planning for the actual court date and a party and a dedication service to all take place within weeks.
Mhm.
And there was just an insane amount of paperwork and phone calls involved at that point. In February 2024, we finally had our court date and immediately followed that up with family pictures.
Mm-hmm.
It was a great idea at the time, and I'm still really, really glad that we have pictures of everyone on that day. But man, it was a lot. Uh, it
There's a
was
lot of
just,
people to get pictures of too, and then get
there
everybody
was,
in and
yeah, two toddlers, because my niece was there too to celebrate with us.
mm-hmm.
It was just such a wonderful day filled with so much love and so many family members and friends. And it was large and intimate at the same time.
Yeah.
Uh, but I just have so many wonderful, wonderful memories of that
Mm-hmm.
day. Um, but we're gonna have another episode for the adoption in a couple
Yes.
weeks
Yes.
to explain all of that because it was a lot.
Well,
Um,
and it took you 3 years to get there. Like
yeah,
it was a very intense process.
we had been told, which again, we'll get to it, but we were also told that there was no way that it would go past his third birthday. We were going to have the adoption before the third birthday.
Yeah.
And so a year before,
Mm-hmm.
in March of 23, we found a cruise
Mm-hmm.
and then booked it for April 2024.
Mm-hmm.
But we booked it the end of March of 23.
Right.
So we have that happening. And we did not get an adoption until February, mid-February.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as the adoption was done, I just went into full panic again. And like I'm still planning the party and the dedication. And now I've got to plan for a cruise, which in order to plan for a cruise, I have to go access a new birth certificate and I have to track down
Yeah.
an adoption decree. And it was just
In
a mad
time for the trip.
dash.
Yeah.
Yeah, because at that point we were coming up on just over 30 days
Mm-hmm.
from leaving the country.
Right.
So had to like run around and gather documents and went to Frankfurt and went to the courthouse multiple times. uh, March 2024, we had a massive adoption party.
Mm-hmm.
You weren't able to be there
No,
because
me
one
and
of
Edie.
yours, yeah, your middle got sick as you were packing, like loading the
Yeah.
van.
Yeah. She was devastated. I was devastated.
I
So it
was
was just
devastated.
Chris and the oldest and the youngest, and they had a blast.
Yeah,
Like they had a good time.
it was a fun time. I enjoyed it, but I'm not gonna lie. I don't know that I ever told you. When I got the text message, I was sitting under my kitchen table and I just sat there and cried.
I'm sorry, babe.
And Shane is like, what is happening? I was like, I started to expand the table to add the leaf, and now why? Because the two of them can't even make it.
Oh gosh.
But Chris came, and I'm glad that Chris was able to come with Eb and Tori. And there were a couple of points where like I needed a therapist there.
Yes.
I'm crying and stomping, and Chris is like, okay. But this party was like a freaking wedding reception.
Yeah, it was big.
We had, it was over 100 people. I want to say it was close to 200.
Yeah, I
There,
think you told me at the time it was like closer to 160 at least.
yeah, yeah, I think that might have been it. It was massive.
Hmm.
And there was a point where we're like an hour and a half in, and I still had not ate or sat.
Hmm. Hmm.
And Chris finally told me, like, hey, you have to eat.
Yep, you need
These
food.
these people here love you. You're doing a great job, but everyone would like to see you eat because you've not eaten today.
Hmm.
And I was like, I'm trying. And then I want to say somebody made me a plate.
Hmm.
I don't remember making my own plate, but I went and like I think Chris even was like, "You've got to go sit with your family now."
Yep, yep.
And I went and sat down with a plate,
Mhm.
and they all ran interference for me. It was like my mom and my grandma and my aunt and my cousin, and then um my other best friend Ashley, her
Mhm.
dad, she wasn't able to make it, but her dad and stepmom were there, and they were all like, "She's busy. She's
She's
gonna eat
eating.
for a minute.
She's eating.
She'll talk
Take a
to you in a
break.
minute. Come back."
Give her a break.
Um, but then as soon as that was over, we had days to get ready to leave the country.
Hmm.
So it was a lot. It was a lot. And then April 1st, I realized I was certifiable. Um, at 5 a.m., we got to record a podcast
Mhm.
that the world may never see.
We tried, okay? We
We
tried, you
did.
guys.
I think we recorded 2 podcasts in April.
Didn't we record one when you were in Florida?
It was the day that I left.
Yeah.
April 1st, we recorded a podcast at 5 a.m., and at 7 a.m., I was headed out of my driveway on our way to the airport.
Hmm. It was
Um,
bonkers.
yeah, we planned 4 days in Fort Lauderdale, followed by the 3-day Disney cruise. And it was a lot of fun, but there was a lot planned. There was something happening all the time. Like, we've also decided we're not doing anything like that again, at least
Hmm.
not until Eli's older. Which, by the way, that's the first time I've got to say his name, which still isn't a full name. That's still a nickname.
But
But
it's more than we've been
still,
able to say before. We usually just say
yes.
E. Hmm.
Um, in Florida, we had a lot of fun. Like, we did something every day. We did a really great riverboat cruise.
Hmm.
Fantastic. And like, they took you to a private island, and there was a buffet. No, there wasn't a buffet. There was like an all-you-can-eat menu.
Good grief.
And it was
Chris
included in
wants to
the
go just for the
cost.
food. He's like, every time he hears about food on cruises, he's like, I just want to go for the food. Like, I
Disney
just
is
want to
the
go to eat.
best. But this was like the riverboat. So
Hmm.
they took you to a private island. It was like all you could eat barbecue. And then
Yeah.
afterwards, you got a show. And it was like a variety show. And it was so much fun.
Hmm.
I absolutely loved it. Um, we went to um, indoor parks. We did all of the things in Florida. Um, but the indoor park, like, that was the day that I discovered everyone, or like not everyone, some people have a story about you, and they tell their friends and loved ones, like, this was the most awkward encounter I had. Like, she's not okay. S- So it was a mess. It was not our last day, but it was the day before the last day that we were just hanging out in Florida. I'm still not a fan. Taylor herself has not been able to make me a fan. But I heard that it's one heck of a drug.
I'm
That's a whole other thing.
determined to get you to like at least part of Florida someday in my lifetime. We're gonna get you to like at least part of Florida because I have so many good memories there. Like I love it. There's so many good things that I enjoy in Florida.
I didn't hate Hollywood. That was okay. Like when we go back, we're gonna stay there.
Okay.
Um, but that's a whole other thing. Um, but we went to the indoor park and it had been a lot and I was super tired and there was a lot happening and my mind was like racing and planning and I have to make this the best vacation that this child has ever seen and he has no memories. He was 3.
I know. I was gonna say it's okay, babe. You really need to take the pressure off yourself. He's not like all he's gonna remember are pictures that you show him. Like he's not actually gonna have memories of his own.
Yeah. Well, we go to this indoor park and it's like there's a jungle gym and all kinds of stuff happening here. But it's super tiny and
Mhm.
in the middle of a strip mall,
Okay.
but it's in Hollywood Beach. And we go up, we have a good time. We call an Uber. We get in. I crawl into the main back of this like 3-row Uber. I'm putting the boys in the middle so I can help latch in Eli's car seat. And as we're doing that, I say, "Oh my gosh, I don't have my phone. It's somewhere in there." And I'm now in the 3rd row with a car seat on one side and a road on the other. And Shane was like, "I'll go get it." And he is gone forever. It took a
Please
10
tell me
minutes.
it wasn't in your pocket. Please tell me it wasn't
It,
in your
it was worse.
pocket.
So it wasn't in the car. My tree just fell over.
Your tree's trying to attack you.
Uh, um, but it wasn't in the car. And I'm profusely apologizing to this man. Like, I'm so sorry that you had to find us, first of all, because the pin of where we were didn't work right and it sent him somewhere else. I was like, I'm sorry it took you so long to find us, and now I'm really sorry you're having to wait on me. And then maybe it was our last day. I don't know. It'll make sense in a minute. So he finds it in the jungle gym. A kid was playing on it.
Of course.
I don't know how this 5-year-old, because it was a kid that had been playing with Eli. I don't know how the 5-year-old hacked my phone.
Because they're 5-year-olds. They're little magicians.
But when he found him, like he was like sitting in a corner playing a game, like his mom found him while Shane was looking for them. But he had to like crawl through the jungle gym to find the phone. And then the guy was like, "Your phone was where?" I was like, "I had to go get my kid." And when I was coming down, it just fell out of my pocket. And he was like, "Okay." As he is taking us to lunch, I get a phone call from our hotel. I made a mistake when I booked and didn't book enough nights. And so I had to do 2 bookings, one for the first 2 nights or 3 nights, ever how many, and then one for the last night before we got on the ship. But because I had 2 bookings, like it was a whole thing. But I talked to him about it. It was like, "Hey, can we just keep the same room?" And they were like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, just check out and then check back in." I'm like, "Okay, great, thank you. It's all already paid for, whatever." I forgot to check out. And so at 3 o'clock, or 2 o'clock, I guess, when maid service goes in to clean this unoccupied room and the other people haven't checked in yet, all of our stuff is there. Everywhere. Not packed. And they panicked. And so then the hotel calls me and they're like, what? What is going on here? And I was like, I made a mistake. I'm so sorry. And they're like, okay, but next time, please just do what we've asked. Everything's going to be fine. But you could make everything easier for everyone if you would just follow instructions.
Well, I don't understand why you had to check out and check back in. And like, why couldn't they do that for you on the phone?
You would think. And like they were able to do it on the phone. Like once when they called, they were able to do that and they were like, just stop by. We've disabled your keys.
You can't get back in.
Stop by and pick up your new keys. I was like, okay. But then Shane, of course, is like, what is going on? Why are you apologizing? Why are you like, yes, we're staying? Like, what is happening? And I have to tell him what I've done and what they said. And I see this Uber driver go, so someone has like a really weird story of me. So there's that. But then we got on the
Disney. I try not to think about those things. Like, I'm sure there's lots of those for me. I just try not to think about them.
There's only been 2 instances in my life where I'm like, these people are gonna have, like, they're absolutely gonna tell their spouse, I met this girl who was really strange.
Only 2? Are you serious?
Like, I guess before I just didn't even think of it. Like, these were the 2 that gave me the look of like.
I mean, like, okay, never mind. I'm apparently a lot weirder than you.
I'm sure more people have these stories, but those are the 2 that are like, I look at them and I'm like, they are thinking right now, I can't wait to tell my wife about this person. But anyway, so we get on the Disney cruise, and had a blast, but I was, again, certifiable and felt like I needed to see all of the people. I didn't care if I saw them. But we did not need to see Captain Hook.
No.
I'm glad we did. It was fun. That was a fun interaction. But I would have rather have had a good seat to the fireworks. I didn't need to sign my son up for royal court with the princesses. He was the only boy there. He had no idea who any of them were. He hit Tiana.
Oh no.
We hit almost all of the characters.
Those poor characters.
Donald.
I hope they get paid well.
Donald was kicked somewhere very unfortunate. But just after the cruise is where our year shifted drastically.
Yes.
The end of April, my dad found a place on the right side of his neck. It was like a little swollen area. He goes to the doctor. They tell him that it's a lymph node that's not draining. Healthier than he should be for his lifestyle, honestly. But he gets lab work every 3 months. He gets his, what do you call it?
Physical?
Yeah, he gets a checkup every 3 months. Like, numbers are never off. He has a little bit of high blood pressure, no big deal. But they're like, oh, we think, I'm just noticing, and that's all I'm gonna think about if I don't turn this. Anyway, the doctor was like, oh, we think you have a lymph node that's just not draining. And I was like, oh my gosh, I get those. I get those right here in my arm where like a little knot comes up And I have to do a lot of like lymphatic draining massages over a
Mhm.
couple of days to get it to ease
Mhm.
up. When they figure out what's causing yours, that's going to help me out a lot. So they gave him antibiotics. So, May 2024, we wanted to take advantage of our Zoom membership we had just purchased. And so Shane had the day off for election day. We voted early and decided to go on down to the zoo,
Which zoo? Sorry.
Knoxville.
Okay.
So while we're there, we found out that the place on the side of Dad's throat is most likely cancerous.
Mhm.
They want to do a bunch of tests and all that. Excuse me, they've done more extensive labs from the last time he was there, and it was kind of inconclusive for them because they hadn't had all the scans done. And then the end of May, we find out that he does have stage 4 squamous cell carcinoma. And stage 4 is the last stage.
Mhm.
So at this point, we settle into a lot of it's not what we wanted, but it could be, it's not as bad as it could have been. So, carcinomas tend to be a little bit easier to fight historically, like skin cancer.
Mhm.
Um,
The challenge with this one is they couldn't just go in and operate on it directly
yeah,
because it's so close to his
it's
artery.
carotid. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in June, we start all the appointments, and there was one day where Dad had 5 appointments in one day, and the appointments were 3 hours away. So we had to drive for 3 hours, have all of those appointments, and drive back home.
Because he wouldn't stay in a
Yeah,
hotel.
he was not going to stay. He's never, there was one time we convinced him to stay, and it's because we had to be there at 4.
Mhm.
Um, so there were some really long days. And then July 3rd, he had his first surgery where they went in to do some biopsies and like some deep tissue biopsies, and they had to pull all of his teeth because he didn't have great oral hygiene to begin with. And with the chemo and radiation, if he would have gotten any kind of infection from it, it would have been a catastrophe.
Including
So,
just like a cavity.
yeah. So they just went ahead and pulled all of his teeth. We continued to have a ton of appointments, basically once a week during the summer. Then July 31st, he had his second surgery. And this one was just a little emotionally harder because he had to have his chemo port put in and a peg tube or a feeding tube put in.
Mm.
So that one was difficult. August 2024 was just a ton of frustration. We felt like we should have already started.
Yeah, it felt like delay upon delay upon delay. Like
Yeah.
it should have been like more action, and it was very much a struggle.
Yeah, we were continuing to just have a ton of appointments, and UK was telling us we want to get started, like we can get started next week. And then Dad's doctors, like in Hazard, were like, we need to do more tests. Trust us. We know this is a hard wait, but we need to do more. We're going to be more accurate if you can just give us some time. We just continued to have appointments we didn't understand, but we didn't realize that Hazard had a better plan than UK. And honestly, they have a better ratio of people who go into remission.
Mhm.
than UK did. But it was still hard in that season of not understanding what was happening and like,
Mhm.
why are we not getting started?
Yes.
September through October was when we had treatments. We had 6 weekly chemos and 5 radiations a week. At least that was the plan. And then on October 3rd, Dad had a stroke. And I had took him into treatments. And that morning, he's just weird.
Mhm.
He was like limping and dragging his foot and struggling to get around the house. And then it was getting hard to understand. So we go in for treatments, and I have to help him get to the building. And that
Mhm.
had never happened before.
Right. That's not
And
normal.
at one point, he told one of the workers, like, you're just going to have to talk to her. She knows everything anyway. And he just quit talking. But thank goodness one of the techs in radiation saw something. I still don't know what happened
Mhm.
during that radiation, but they saw something and they called over multiple doctors and all the nurses. And there was, that's when we realized what was happening.
Mhm.
The man refused to go to ER
Oh,
because
yep.
he was not having a stroke. And we're all like,
It's something about like a dad thing to say that's not happening. Like I can say it and make it real is kind of how I feel like what he was doing. Like, no, that's not happening. I
yeah,
can stop this from happening if I just say it's not happening. Like,
yeah. And I'm just like, that we're going. And he's like, I'm not
mhm,
going. And I was like, okay, well, here's the thing. You are currently sitting in a wheelchair. You can't walk on your own. The ER is right there, and I'm the driver.
mhm.
You weigh 100 pounds. You're going to ER whether you want to be there or not.
It's not like you can get home without
Yeah,
me. Like, there's not anyone who's going to back you up here, Dad. No one is going to come and get you.
yeah. So we go to ER. Within minutes, we are checking in a CT. I was put in a room alone. That's how quickly it moved because they all recognized what was going on. It wasn't very long after that that we get a call or we get told that they want to fly him to UK because he
Mhm,
is having a stroke. And he'd actually started having a stroke almost 24 hours before.
mhm,
And he just hadn't told anybody.
mhm.
And
Or
he,
maybe even not recognize it himself.
yeah, what is frustrating is we took him to a doctor that day,
Mhm,
a couple of hours after he started having symptoms. We took him to a doctor. I didn't realize, but I'm also not a trained professional.
yeah, yeah.
One of the clinic staff knows mom, and she told her, like, I immediately knew. When I saw
Mhm,
him and he saw him trying to check in, I knew what was happening. How did the doctor not know? That's a whole other thing. Um, they weren't able to fly him out that day, but they were able to transport with an ambulance. Um, he lost motor controls in his right side, and then he had the slurred speech. He had a lot of cognitive issues. Those were almost all gone by November 1st.
mhm,
Like the stroke had never happened.
mhm. Yeah,
It
didn't you
was,
say it was like because with the I don't remember if it was the chemo or the radiation causing blood clots, and then one of those had gone up, and then they were able
mhm.
to break it up with the blood thinners, basically. Like this stuff fascinates me. I'm just it's it's wild.
So we were just told here in the last couple of weeks that for some reason, cancer patients it's more likely to have multiple blood clots.
Mm-hmm.
And like we still don't know why. They're still doing
Mm-hmm.
research on what causes that.
Right.
But with his radiation, like he had a clot on this side,
Mm-hmm.
in the artery. He had clots here, and the radiation would flick off little pieces and send it to the
Mm-hmm.
brain. And so the week before or 2 weeks before, he had had some similar issues, but they were like, neuropathy is normal
Mm-hmm.
with chemo. They weren't understanding it wasn't just in his fingers.
Right.
They thought we meant his hand.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a struggle. But he finished chemo, radiation, rang the bell whether he wanted to or not, or the gong.
Well, and I want to clarify too, like you weren't just seeing this from the outside. You were spending every weekday
Hmm.
with your family and taking him to most of his appointments during this time. And it was exhausting. Like you had E on your own at the appointments with your dad a lot of the time.
Yeah, especially there
Uh
towards the end.
yeah. And that was a very long 2 months.
It was like, don't regret a second of it. Gladly
No, of
do
course not.
another two
Of
months,
course not. Yeah.
but like it was exhausting.
Because
Um,
and you weren't getting to see Shane and E wasn't getting to see Shane like during the week and you were only home on the weekends just to turn around, like get your house turned around and get your clothes
mhm,
turned around and go right back.
yeah. Um, but then in November, we go for follow-ups with the original oncologist, and she does some scans and comes in and tells us that she's very sorry, but the chemo and radiation were overall unsuccessful. And not only is the cancer, or now at that point, she just told us the cancer was still present. And
Hmm.
she's like, this is up to you. Do you want to have surgery or not have surgery? And Dad was like, I want to have surgery. And she's like, okay, then we'll do surgery. We'll do surgery December 23rd. We say, okay, we'll make it work. We start planning our holiday schedule around that. And then mom gets a phone call the next week, like days. And it is not a nurse, it is not a tech, it is not a student, it is the oncologist herself. And she says, I want to call you because after looking at the scans a little bit more and after talking with the tumor board, it would be pointless to do surgery. The cancer has spread to the lungs.
Hmm.
And really, at this point, there's nothing else we can do.
Hmm.
We're devastated.
Hmm.
And she tells mom, you've got days to weeks, not months. Enjoy the time you have.
Yeah, it was like dire.
Yeah. So
It was like this may be your last Christmas with your dad.
mhm, we were able to get him into an emergency PET scan and talk to some other people. And they were like, and at this point, like we are getting into December.
Hmm.
And they're like, yeah, so we see that the cancer is present in the lungs, but you've got three small places.
Hmm.
One is at the base of the lungs and it's the size of a marble. The other two are a fraction of that size.
Hmm.
So it's not great, but there are things we can do. We can do chemo, we can do immunotherapy, we can do those together. And we're like, absolutely, let's do it. He goes in for his first first immunotherapy, together.
Yeah, because they
And
were combining them. They were doing them
yeah,
like in the same day. And the infusions too, weren't they doing like
yeah.
infusions as well to help?
Well, it was just the immunotherapy and chemo.
Okay.
They weren't doing infusions anymore. Um, but he was done in 30 minutes. We're like, well, that's weird. What kind of chemo's done in 30 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
And we finally get to talk to his oncologist in Hazard and find out that he could not handle chemo and that even one more round of chemotherapy could kill him.
Would have been nice to know before the appointment.
Yeah.
Like the level of communication has not been good.
Yeah. Up until that point, like we were totally happy with them.
Mm-hmm.
We were happier with Hazard than we were UK.
Mm-hmm.
But that was really frustrating that like we
Mm-hmm.
had no idea what was happening. But um just kind of skipping ahead a little bit just to wrap up the stuff with Dad. So he did the first immunotherapy. He started swelling a lot. We told him like, "Hey, there's a lot of swelling." And Mom like looked it up and Dad had looked it up and it said that with immunotherapy, you'll have swelling because fluid rushes to the good tissue
Mm-hmm.
to help support that so that it can better fight the bad tissue or the bad cells. All right. But none of them, like he hadn't gone to any appointments yet, and so nobody had seen the swelling to see that it wasn't typical.
Mm-hmm.
And just this last week, when my mom came home from work, he met her at the door, and he was very, very swollen. By the time they got to the hospital, his eye had almost swollen shut.
Mm-hmm.
And he's telling her he can't breathe and he has to go to the hospital. This is the same man that during a stroke told me he didn't need to go to the hospital.
Yep.
So she rushes him to ER, and we find out that he has multiple other blood clots, even though he's on a blood thinner and has been since October.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not effective anymore. And so, and the original clots have still not dissipated. So they have to increase his blood thinners. I think he's now doing an injectable.
Okay.
And they have had to put him on oxygen. Um, Honestly, I thought he was just having a panic attack, is what it sounded like to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then they, like, when he got to ER, his pulse ox wasn't perfect, but it was okay.
Mm-hmm.
He was still struggling, telling him, like, I feel like I can't breathe. Again, we just thought it was a panic attack. Come to find out, he has pneumonia.
Ooh.
So they wanted to test him, took the oxygen away for a little while, and at one point it dropped as low as 78.
Mm.
It stayed in the mid 80s for almost an hour.
Mm-hmm.
So he is now on oxygen. Like they sent oxygen home with him. He got out of the hospital as of the day we're recording this yesterday. And he's still really anxious. Like he didn't want to leave.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't want to leave the hospital. He was very,
Did
very
they
anxious about it.
did they give him any more information on the swelling? Is that just because of the clots, like backing everything up and causing
Yeah.
the swelling?
And now that he has had a therapeutic level of heparin,
Mm-hmm.
there is no swelling.
That's, oh my gosh.
But through all of this, we do know that the mass is the smallest it's been. So we were told we wouldn't know if immunotherapy was successful for 2 months. And
Mm-hmm.
now we have scans that say it's significantly smaller.
It's helping.
Uh, so then the last bit of the year was Christmas 2024.
I got
Because
to help you decorate. It was
well, it
great.
was miserable. I decorated so extra this year because I just felt like I needed a little extra cheer, and I absolutely took
You
advantage of
guys,
having more hands.
we decorated right after Halloween.
Yeah, like during the Halloween trip.
Yep. I was there for Halloween. Oops, I just knocked my camera. Yeah, we were there for the Halloween trip, and like as soon as we were done trick or treating, like it was like, okay, pull out the boxes, pick up the
Mhm.
house, let's decorate.
Yep. I don't remember if we got the tree up on November 1st or 2nd.
I'm not sure, but the kids loved it. They loved all of it. They were like, "This is awesome!"
I had 6 trees in my house.
You only had one up, I think, when we were there. Maybe
Uh-huh.
two.
I think I'd put 2 up
Mm-hmm.
before you guys left. Um, I had Christmas bedding.
Mm-hmm.
I went all out. I put lights around my hallway.
Mm-hmm. You had a Grinch shower curtain?
Yes. I had already almost forgot about that. Like I have a Grinch shower curtain and um a couple of really cute bath towel or not towels, but
Mm-hmm.
rugs. Loved it. Went all out because I needed extra cheer this Christmas season.
Yes. Needed all the sparkle and all the joy we could wring out of this Christmas.
And then it was ripped away. So Shane's a teacher and his immune system is better than it has any right to be. And Shane doesn't get sick that often, but me and Eli do.
Mm-hmm.
So if we don't go anywhere, especially this year, like we're busy. We don't have time to go hang out places. So the week before Christmas, Shane and I feel bad. It's just some sinus stuff. But we had our regular appointment with our doctor anyway, like our annual exam. So let's just talk to him. Run tests. Got tested for flu, strep, and COVID. All 3 came back negative for both of us. This is the 19th. Shane still tells me he feels bad. But also, like Shane and I have discussed, he can be very suggestible with illnesses. And he can like trick his body into, I'm really sick.
Mm-hmm. His brain can overrule what's actually happening.
Yeah. And so when he's telling me, I don't feel good. I feel really bad, actually. I'm like, well, it's because you're psyching yourself up, hun. Like, I don't feel good either. I also have a sinus infection. It's fine. The 20th, we go to Lexington to celebrate birthdays. And that night, he's like, I feel like I'm chilling.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, you just walked outside in the rain.
Mm-hmm.
Like, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, this feels worse. I don't know, man. He didn't say a whole lot about it on the 21st. 22nd, but like you could also tell, like he's not faking it. He
Mm-hmm.
genuinely feels bad. 22nd, he seems to feel better. We have a birthday party and then we go to my mom's for Christmas. We open gifts with like our family, my brother's family, mom and dad, and my grandma. And, everyone's fine. December 23rd, as we're getting ready to have lunch with a friend, Eli says, Mom, I don't feel good. And I said, oh, what's wrong? My body. I need
My
to go to the
body.
clinic.
Oh,
And I was like, well, okay, I'm going
okay.
to need specifics. What part of your body hurts?
We need to
Okay.
know more because they're going to ask more.
Yeah, and his response was, okay. But he has been watching shows about kids going to the clinic. And so, like, he's been saying, like, I'm sick. I need to go to a clinic.
Like, clinic is cracking me up. It's not doctor. It's not like doctor's office. It's I need to go to the clinic.
He cried a couple weeks ago telling me that his body hurt and he needed to go to the doctor. And I was like, okay, well, what's wrong? And he's like, I need to go to the dentist. And I said, I think you're confused. Dentist or teeth? What's wrong with your teeth? And he goes, my teeth don't come out like everyone else's. Because my dad had his teeth pulled, and my mom had her
Huh?
teeth pulled and had dentures. My
And your
grandma
granny.
has
Yeah.
dentures. And so everybody's teeth comes out, and his don't come out. So he needs to go and have that fixed. And so I'm just like, okay.
He needs removable teeth.
Yeah. I was like, all right, this is fine. He's fine. We get to lunch, and our friend is like, hey, Eli, how are you? And he goes, I'm sick. See? We laugh because it's cute. And he goes, oh, my little boy went through that phase. He sits down in my lap, and I said, what do you want to eat, buddy? They're talking. They're having a conversation. What do you want to eat? Do you want nuggets and fries, or do you want chicken and dumplings? He said, I don't want anything. It'll make me sick. I said, it's not going to make you sick. What do you want to eat? You need to eat something. And he goes, Mom, I don't. Projectile vomiting.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then, as I'm cleaning it up, no one around us notices. Thank God. Because my kid just vomited in the middle table of a restaurant with people eating everywhere. Could have been terrible. Could have been a chain effect. No one noticed. Not even the people at our table noticed. And I'm just like, okay. Whatever. I get him cleaned up. I get cleaned up, and he's like, my body feels better. I tell my husband what's happened, and he's like, is everything okay? Do we need to go? And I was like, I sometimes get sick when my sinuses drain. I think that's what it is. And like he's telling me he feels better.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like what this is. Other than that, he's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I had body aches with my sinus infection. Like, this is what this sounds like. And he says, okay. Eli just goes to sleep. Sleeps the entire lunch. No big deal. All right.
That's also not like Eli, though, to just go to sleep.
Yeah. And in my head, I was like, this is weird. But it is
Mm-hmm.
nap time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man. I don't know where we
Mm-hmm.
are.
I
But
feel
we
like
have,
as parents, we kind of get in this like denial state
yeah.
where we're like, please don't be sick. It's not sick. I refuse to think it's sick. I do. No, it's not sick. They're not sick. Like, no.
Well, the end of lunch, he asks to go to Shane. Like, he wakes up, he asks to go to Shane, fine. And I thought he was warm, but I'm snuggling him like this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, this isn't warm. It's hot in here, and we're snuggling, and he's dressed in flannel.
Mm-hmm.
But he runs hot. So that's what this is. Shane touches him, he goes, we have a fever. And I said, no, we don't. And he says, we have a fever. And I touch him, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And our friend's name is Eric. And he looks over, Eli looks over, and he goes, Mr. Elwick, could you just hold Eli for a minute?
No.
And he gives him a hug. But I mentioned, like, he's a dad. And so he gives him a hug. And he hands him back to Shane. And he's like, that's a fever. And I was like, oh no. We dip, call his doctor. The call, like, as I'm getting about to be told what I need to do. Because I also don't want to take him, like, if he's already sick, I don't want to take him and expose him to other things. So I call his doctor, like, what do I do? Do I take him to an ER? Do I take him to a clinic?
Like
Like,
urgent care or something.
yeah. And he hangs, like, the call ends. I go through a dead zone. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna just make this call as a mom. I'm gonna take him to an urgent care. And I stopped by my mom's office to drop off her lunch, and I tell her what's going on. And the doctor she works for, he's an optometrist, comes in and he's like, take him over here. Take him right next door to us. Nobody goes there.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to have a better chance getting in and out without being exposed to a lot of other things if you just go here. And I know these people. I like these people.
Right.
Like, okay, we go in. He crawled up in the nurse's lap. She was trying to do his, like, vitals, and he climbs up in her lap and just lays his head over on her. And he had a fever of 100.8.
Poor buddy.
And we were like, oh no. She goes ahead and does a test. We go see the doctor. She comes in and is like, well, he tested positive for flu immediately. And I was like, well, crap.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tell the doctor, like, hey, my dad has squamous cell carcinoma. He's doing immunotherapy. We just finished a round of chemo and radiation in October. What do you think? And she said, you can't go back to that house.
Yeah.
I was like, yep, that's what I'm thinking too. So we have to go back and get our stuff, but me and Eli stay in the van while Shane goes in, packs the essentials, and we head out. We go into quarantine 23rd, 24th, 25th. This was the first time that I've never seen my family on the 24th, and that was difficult.
Mm-hmm. I think I've had two Christmases. I'm trying to remember. I think I've only had two Christmases where I haven't seen my family, like at our family function. And one, I'm trying to remember what the second one is. I can't remember, but the one that I remember right now was I was pregnant with Ed and we were living in Florida. And he went 2 weeks past his due date. So he was due any day, really. And it was my first baby, could go early. So I'm like, I can't fly. I can't drive.
Yeah.
I'm in Florida. And so that was a hard one to be away from my family that Christmas because I was like,
Yeah. I really struggled. And my mom really struggled. But like we did what we had to do. Like we could not risk
you got to keep people safe.
Dad getting the flu. So we were told if he goes 24 hours without running a fever, you're good to go to a family function. Just still don't get in people's faces.
Yeah.
Great. So he ran a fever at 8 a.m. on December 25th. And that was it. And this is unmedicated.
Mm-hmm.
We gave him Tylenol then. He didn't run a fever again.
Mm-hmm.
So 25th into the 26th, Diana, my 4-year-old, slept until almost 10:30.
Wow.
And he went to bed at like 9.
That's not him.
Everyone in this house, like when he finally woke up, I had been awake. I just hadn't like reached for my phone or anything yet. I was just like stretching and stuff. And I touched my phone and I screamed out, Shane! And he's like, what? I was like, look at that time. And I hear Shane say, holy cow, how did this happen? Good question, bro. Good question. We got up, we took our time. We called my mother-in-law and was like, hey, he's not had a fever since yesterday. 8 a.m. was our last Tylenol. We still have to get ready. Would you be comfortable with us coming to visit and spending some time with you? And she's like, absolutely. Please come over. We go over, spend the morning. We leave. We go to the theater. I go in and see a movie while Shane and Eli go play in the arcade. We go back to their house for gifts that night. When we went back for gifts, she's making hot tea. I've never seen her drink hot tea before. And she's like, I don't know, I just feel funny, like my sinuses are draining. I think it's just my sinuses. It's probably just my sinuses. My light keeps moving. And we're like, Oh, it's probably just your sinuses because you've really not been exposed to Eli.
Hmm.
We saw him Christmas Eve for a little while outside and did a COVID gift exchange situation with my sister-in-law and her partner. But like, I don't think it's the flu.
Hmm.
It wasn't. It was COVID.
It's COVID. Of course it was.
So the next morning, the 27th, we were going to go in, spend the night with my mom and dad, and then go to my grandmother's Christmas on the 28th. We were loading the car. I was standing at the door, organizing our bags and our gifts and counting and making sure we had everything. Shane had just taken the first load out to the van, and I got a text message that she had tested positive for COVID. And I was like, well,
Nope.
and Shane came back in and he's like, what do you need me to get now? And I was like, I'm going to need you to go get those clothes. He's like, I just took the clothes out. And I was like, yeah, we can't go. I said, did you not see your mom's text message? He's like, no. And I said, honey, she has COVID. You need to call and check on her. But also, we can't risk it again. We were
No.
with her last night. We could be carriers.
Yep. And you could be carriers for like 2 weeks before you show,
Yeah.
which is bonkers.
So I called mom. I'm devastated. This is only the second Christmas that I've missed at my grandmother's. Um, we checked on my mother-in-law first. She's fine now. She got pretty sick though. Like wasn't hospital sick, but she got down.
Hmm.
Um, and then
Which I feel like she's got a pretty good immune system too. Like she's a lot like Shane. She doesn't get sick super
yeah,
often.
yeah. Um, but I was like, we can't risk again.
Hmm.
I called mom crying. I was like, but I miss you. Um, but we had to go back into quarantine. We contacted one of dad's doctors and asked them like, when's the soonest we can see each other again? And she's like, oh, honey, you've got to wait at least 5 days.
Hmm.
And even then, only if no one has shown any type of symptoms.
Hmm.
Okay. And we had also kind of figured out, I don't think I mentioned earlier, like Shane probably had the flu.
Hmm.
And then Eli caught the flu. Somehow I was fine.
Hmm.
The one who has never had a flu vaccine was fine. um,
The one
and
time I
we,
caught the flu was the year that I got the flu vaccine in college, and I've never taken the flu vaccine since. I was like, this was not worth it, and I felt horrible not doing it again.
my grandma gets really sick when she has hers. And they told us like it's probably a genetic thing. And so I've just never gotten it. I've always given it to Eli, but we always give it to him at his annual exam. That's not until mid-January.
Hmm.
But it is what it is. We had to go back into quarantine. So I have still not been back to my mom's. Um, Eli still has gifts that he has not opened.
He's gonna have a party. He's gonna think
So
it's great. Like Christmas got extended.
yeah.
Your tree's down though, isn't it? You took down all your stuff,
Oh yeah.
your Christmas tree
Because
and stuff.
I was just angry. I was so mad. And the night that we found out my mother-in-law tested positive for COVID, Eli started to run into fever. Like he just walked up to Shane and he's like, Daddy, I think I need some medicine.
Hmm.
But he has always really liked the taste of medicine. And we were like, oh, do you? And he's like, my body hurts again.
Hmm.
And Shane touched him and he was like, go to your mom. Sure enough, he's running
Hmm.
another fever. Take him to another urgent care, which was his doctor's urgent care though. And they were like, this is what the flu's doing this year. You get it,
Ew.
you get better, and then you have like a not a relapse, but a whatever, where you're,
Recurrent.
yeah, where you have a couple of days without a temperature, and then you start running a fever again for a shorter time than you did the first time, and then you finally get better.
Gross.
So he continued to run fevers until December 30th.
Poor bud.
Yeah. It's been a rough year.
Hmm.
It's been a busy year.
Hello, 2025.
Yeah. We have had some of the highest of highs with the adoption and some of the lowest of lows with the stuff going on with Dad.
Yes.
But it's over, and I'm keeping faith for 2025.
Yes.
It's started out rocky,
Yes.
but here we are.
But you're like, the Eli thing is finished. Like there's no going back with that. That's a
Yeah.
absolute accomplishment. And your dad, oh no, sorry.
I love it.
Is this the one where I get the fireworks? I don't remember. How did we get fireworks?
It-
Yes, that was
yeah.
it. I can't. Sorry. So juvenile. um anyway, the Eli thing is finished. And even though it's been a really hard time with your dad, it absolutely has. I don't want to minimize that at all. But it is looking positive
Yeah.
with the way things are going right now. Like there's no way to tell the cancer. Cancer's so wily. You just really you have to flex with it as you're treating it, is my understanding.
Mhm.
Um, but it's looking good for what you thought it was just a few weeks ago. Like compared to what you were thinking before Christmas, like we're like, okay, hey, this is actually looking
Yeah.
positive at this point.
Yeah. Um, Prognosis is like many years or 6 months right now.
Hmm. Which is better than days to weeks,
Yeah.
which is what they had told you before.
Yeah. And with the tumor showing like significant difference, we genuinely believe it's not just like blind faith. We genuinely believe that we're looking at remission soon.
Hmm.
He's going to be doing immunotherapy every 3 weeks for a year.
Okay.
And with one already showing this much progress, we are very hopeful.
So when you say the tumor is shrinking, that's the one in his neck. Are they
Mhm.
keeping track of the ones in his lungs as well?
They've
I
done a
know that's harder
couple,
to see.
yeah, they've done a couple lung CT scans since he's been in the hospital with pneumonia.
Hmm.
But they've not mentioned anything
Okay.
about how
I would
those
be
masses look.
interested because they should have shown up on those.
Yeah. Apparently the pulmonologist came in while mom was gone, and it was my dad and his older brother there, and they had no idea what he was saying. And I was like, of all the doctors, like, we need to
Right.
hear this one.
That's who we need to talk to.
Mom went down yesterday. She took a load of stuff down to the car because they were there for almost a week. So she carried a load of stuff down to her car. She said she didn't start it, she didn't clean it, she didn't do anything. She opened the door, put the stuff in, shut it, locked it as she's walking away from it, goes back up to the room. In that amount of time, she missed the pulmonologist again.
Oh,
And she's like, how
y'all need
does
to just
this
make an appointment
happen?
with that man. Be like, hey, excuse me, we need to talk to you because
Yeah,
he doesn't remember anything. He's not a reliable source.
yeah. It wasn't even a lack of remembering, it was a lack of understanding.
Hmm.
He couldn't understand anything that he said. It's like, well, okay.
I think your dad needs like a note somewhere in his room. Cannot talk to doctors without an accompanying adult.
Yes.
Like he needs he needs his emotional support daughter or wife when you have
Yes.
these conversations.
There have been so many phone calls where he's like, I'm gonna need you to just talk to her. Because he struggles to hear anyway. The man
Right.
was
He's got
a
hearing
heavy
loss.
machinery
Yeah.
mechanic
Yeah.
for 20 plus years.
Hmm.
And then radiation also affects hearing. And
right?
so it's like, oh
Well,
my
and then he's
gosh.
still dealing, like, he's recovered phenomenally well from his strokes, but he's still dealing with some fallout from his strokes as well.
Yeah. I've had a very cozy blanket over my lap.
I'm jealous.
So,
I should have brought one. Yeah.
but that's my year. I also expected this to be like 40, 45 minutes tops.
Well, part of the time that it's showing was when we were just chatting before you recorded. So,
Oh yeah, that's true.
because we just chatted, like we pre-gamed. But our lovely listeners, we're so excited that we're back. We're so
Yes.
excited that you guys are listening and here to support us. And I hope that you are ready for us to get back in the swing of things. We have several things planned for this season. We're looking at my catch up next time. We're going to do kind of a 2025 projection after that. We have a couple of books to talk about. We're going to have a conversation about the whole adoption process, which I'm excited to go through that with Amanda. Um, we are going to talk about homeschool conventions this season.
Yes.
We're going to talk about Holy Huga this season. I think that's
Yes.
on our list. We're going to talk about Habits of the Household, which is a book that I read actually in 2024. And I've got to go back and go through that again. Um, so yeah, we've got some fun things planned coming up. And excited to bring you guys along.
I, so I'm looking in the background at all the coziness, and you got your red light, and I can see light hitting the snow outside your window.
Yes.
Beautiful, beautiful bed here. And
So
then
look
you,
over here, guys. I have this going on. I don't know if you can tell because it's got the background fuzz on it. I will talk about it in mine, but I am determined to have all of the cozy happy in my house this winter because I need it. So there are twinkle lights all over my house.
well, you have all of the coziness, and then your plant's flipping me off.
Rude. You rude little plant. This is my snake plant and I love it. Yeah, but he is kind of flipping you off.
Yeah,
I
like
don't know if you can
especially
tell.
with the black background blur.
Uh-huh. Yeah. It's not really a statue flipping people off. Sorry. He's my friend. I love him so much. He had a name at one point and I don't remember what it is. But I still love him.
Disappointment.
I know it is disappointing.
I mentioned my plants the other day to my mom, and I was like, she is so dramatic. And my mom was like, how do you know it's a she? I said,
Because
because she's
most
so
plants,
dramatic.
I honestly, most plants are.
Yeah.
Actually, that's Elvira. That's who that is. I forgot. Elvira. It sounded like a Slytherin name because it's snaky.
What was mine? I think I named mine Sylvester.
Yes. I like it. I like it.
But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, that's all I had.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for joining us. And I hope that you continue to find the beauty in your unvarnished life this week. Love you guys. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.